All right, everybody, we're here on Fort Loudoun, and I've never been on this body of water before, or Tellico, but I wanted to give you guys a different view. You know, you see me practice day to day, you see, you know, there's practice vlogs, but you don't get to see the pre-practice, the time that you're prepping before the official practice. And sometimes, like, you know, you guys have big tournaments and other guys are out here trying to prepare for events that are so far away, it can be really difficult. So I wanted to show you a couple of things that I do that help me along. I really use my electronics a lot, which is going to be a huge player, but also it's going to be just going through some of the things and some of the thoughts that I have and the game plan that I have going into Fort Loudoun and Tellico. So I'm going to spend the day today on Loudoun, running around, and just sort of point out some of the things that I feel like are going to play big in the Classic. Maybe they won't, but it's one of those things you're going to see some of the stuff that I look for, especially the wintertime, being 4 months out. The tournament's going to be the middle of March. I would assume the water is going to be probably fairly similar as far as water temperature, 52, 50s to maybe mid 50s. So it's going to be a pre-spawn tournament. You would assume a couple things, jerk baits, crank baits, stuff like that is going to play, maybe even a silver buddy. You just sort of, you know, you're going to have to play around with it. So the one thing that I'll show you though, real quick, I'll show you guys, you can come on back here. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do on these units is I'm going to go over here and select a trail. This is the first thing, press, well, actually I don't even need to show. That way, when I have my trails up here, this is the first trail that I'm going to make, and I'm going to start idling around, looking at places, and I know where I've been on this body of water, which I'm sure I'll know anyway, but at the same point in time, it just gives you a point of reference and knows, like, hey, it lets you know that, like, hey, look, you've graphed that point, or you've graphed that saddle, or you've graphed whatever is over in that area. So that sort of gives you an idea. I don't think this tournament, in my mind, Tennessee River, wintertime fish or pre-spawn fish, those fish live from 12 foot and shallower. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my first assumption, my first guess. And so we're going to go out here and sort of see and sort of develop, you know, an idea by the end of the day. But a lot of it won't be really fishing. A lot of it will probably be looking around. And, you know, Bradley wants to look around just as much as anybody else. That's sucker right there. But yeah, so that'll be what it is. It's going to be looking around, trying to analyze things a little bit. And that's probably one of the toughest things to do is analyze a tournament or analyze a fishery, you know, to prepare 4 months in advance. So hopefully you guys learn a little bit. Let's go see if we can't find this view.
I put the team on my back. I do it all for the family. Everyone think they can rap. Nobody ever gonna challenge me. Starting my week on a Sunday, and then they can make it a one day.
All right, so what we got right here, here's just a little place I graphed around a little bit. There's like a stump and some rock and like a little fish pack right there, some bait around. So what I did, instead of, normally I'll run split screens and I'll show, like this will be side imaging, but I wanted to do both. So now I have both Navionics and I have the C-Maps program, and I've shaded my C-Maps to put that red where it's basically anything shallower than about 8 to 9 feet is going to be in that red. So that gives me an idea, like when I'm running around, that you know, that's the depth zone that I want to look at. Road beds in the wintertime are always a pretty good deal. So I'm going to slide over here, and on this Navionics, it shows a road bed. It doesn't really show any. It doesn't really show anything on the C-Maps, but so you sort of see that road bed might not be that big a deal because there's not really a contour change around that area. So there might just be some old rubble, but it also gives you an idea that there was once there a road there. So, and some of these, they say there's road beds, but I mean, some of them, they're just not there. So I try to graph over them, let's see if they're still there, and then go from there. So you can see a little bit of rubble over here on the right-hand side. See a little bit of rubble right in there. Not a whole lot though. Because I'm gonna look at my phone. I'm gonna go into my apps. Go to the TBA app because it says a TBA lake. I'm gonna look at the water level. So the one thing that I have seen is, like, I want to know if there's a water level that's gonna fluctuate that much, or if it's not, or what it's doing right now. So Fort Loudoun, right here, the water is at 8:10 and a half. So the tournament is scheduled to be about 8, 9, I think, is what it is. So I'll go over here to this operating guide, check on this real quick. So the operation guide, if I look in March, so it's going to want to be like right around 808. So the water right now is 2 feet higher than what it'll probably be in the tournament that, that we're fishing, unless there's, a flood or anything, which that could happen. But that's something that right off the giddy, I know, all right, if I find something in a foot of water or 2 foot of water, that's probably not going to help me that much. It'll probably be dry. So you got to think about that as well. The biggest thing I'm doing right now is just grafting the back halves of these pockets, because you got to think what's going to end up happening is a lot of these pockets could potentially be getting warmer, as the tournament goes on. So some of these fish, some of the largemouth might slide back in the back of the pocket. There's a lot of bait in the back of these creek arms right now, almost too much. And that makes it tough, because right now what's happening is these fish are just roaming around on nothing. And when that happens, it can be tough to really figure them out, especially 4 months in advance. So I'm not going to fish a ton. I will fish a little bit. Like there's like a little hard spot right there. So the water will drop 2 feet. That's a good little place I might throw a lipless crankbait, and so I'll mark a lot of these places. I'll have so many different little places marked that, and then the better stuff, I'll have it marked with a different icon. So I'll mark that we'll put a couple little dots there. I like that, looks pretty good. This right here, we're getting into the water where we won't have any water at all. So this probably won't, this might be like a rattle trap pocket in the very back of it. Normally you want some stained water for that. And this water is, closer to the dam. So it's probably not going to be one of those deals. The water down here is probably going to be some of the clearest water you're going to have. So you just never know though. With the Tennessee River, it could get really, really rainy and the wind, get up and everything gets muddy. So, I'm just trying to sort of keep it honest. Right here's a typical pre-spawn little area. You have a bridge that has, a little bit of depth of water. You got some rock, you got some bait. Right now it looks pretty, but I'm gonna stop here and just make a couple casts just for the fun of it. Because you can't, this is the thing, when you pre-practice, you gotta have a little bit of fun too. You can't always be driving around, but no. Got a little bit of grass on, a little leaf. You're not going to see as many guys fish the little bit, flatter stuff as much, cranking more than likely, They're probably, most obvious places are going to be your steeper channel banks and stuff like that, especially if it's cold, which it probably still will be. All right, this is a perfect example of something that I will definitely be paying attention to as we ride through. I stopped and made a couple casts just to sort of see. There's a little current here. I guess there's a little pond in the back of there, a little part of the other part of the lake. And riprap banks are always notorious for having big largemouth in the springtime, and especially some that are in the backs of the creeks, because the water's gonna be a little warmer. You got big rocks. And it's even better when you have a drain like that. You might have a little current. You can see a little current coming out of there right now. Bait will be pushed back in here. So this is a place that I'm going to mark. I'm going to say, okay, hey, this is obvious. Sometimes don't forget the obvious. I see people do that a lot. You forget the obvious. You look at it, you're like, yeah, I don't know about that. You still want to look at unobvious places, but you can't, when we're talking in the Classic, when there's only 50 boats, you can't overlook the obvious. So definitely riprap banks and little drains like this are going to be on my list for places to check during that practice. Another thing that's going to probably play a pretty good role is these laydown trees, especially these cedars and pine trees. They're going to have enough cover for them as those fish move up out of a little bit deeper water. The ones that have water on them are going to be a huge role, and those are going to be the places that have those channel banks. The banks that are a little bit steeper are going to be the places that you're going to look for those laydown trees to play. And if the water's dirty, they might bite a spinnerbait on them. Water's clear, it might be a jig, but I will definitely think, this is something that I'm going to look for, where these laydown trees come out. 5 foot of water right here. These are going to be players for sure that I'm going to mark and at least know that they're there. So if I get on a flipping tree bite where I feel like that's the deal, then I'm going to at least know where a lot of these are. So I try to mark a lot of places, and I'm definitely using a lot of time just waypointing a lot of different places. All right, so we just dropped in somewhere else, started idling around a little bit, and now it just, you sit back and put your side imaging on about 100 and you idle. I mean, that is as boring as it sounds. That is what I'm doing. Day in and day out, I'll spend countless hours idling down these break lines, idling areas that look insignificant on a map. But, you know, finding something that's not on a map or something a little bit different can be the key of winning and losing. And so I try to find places that are a little bit different than everybody else is fishing. So, you know, idling those places that don't look that great can hold a couple fish. And right now it's so tough because I'm not going to be able to visually see those fish on those places. I'm not going to be able to, I just have to guess. It's sort of a guessing game, and that's tough. But for me, you know, if I find a couple little places that look really good, I'm assuming these fish are going to be in 5 to 10 foot of water, you know, when we come back, really set up to pre-spawn. And that's the area that I'm really going to be idling around looking for those fish. So hopefully we can guess right. And I'll use that Lowrance electronics, and I'll sit there and I'll mark individual places that look good, whether it's a rock pile, whether it's brush, whether it's a point, whether it's a steeper break, you know, just basically places that look good to me that I want to have. And then I'll put it in my whole log of waypoints. I have tons of waypoints, you know, which a lot of them won't be any good at all. But ultimately, one of those or a few of those, a series of those might end up paying, you know, a dividends when I come back. And that's a big deal.